The sun had not yet risen over Medina. A man stood atop the highest home, his heart carrying the weight of history and the scars of torture. As the first light touched the horizon, he opened his mouth to give a call that would echo through time. This is the story of Bilal ibn Rabah. The air in Medina was different. It carried not the oppressive heat of Meccan sands, but a gentle promise like the first breath before dawn. In the modest courtyard of the Prophet's peace be upon newly built home, a meeting of destiny was unfolding. The companions gathered: Abu Bakr, the pillar of solace; Umar, the mountain of resolve; Uthman, the embodiment of modesty; Ali, the wellspring of wisdom. And among them stood Bilal ibn Rabah, the freed Abyssinian slave, his presence a living testament to Islam's revolution. The Prophet, peace be upon, his face illuminated with a light that seemed to rival the coming morning, addressed them. The question hung in the sacred space: how should the believers be called to prayer? The Salah was the pillar of their new community, the heartbeat of Medina. They needed a sign, a unifying call. Suggestions were made: a bell like the Christians, a horn like the Jews. The Prophet, peace be upon, listened, his silence weighing each idea and finding them wanting. This call needed to be pure, distinct, a voice born from the very essence of Tawheed. That night, a vision visited Abdullah ibn Zayd. In his dream, a man clothed in green carried a bell. When Abdullah inquired about selling it, the man asked, "What will you do with it?" Upon hearing it was for the call to prayer, the man taught him words that resonated with divine melody. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Abdullah woke, his heart thrumming with the rhythm of the words. He rushed to the messenger of Allah, peace be upon, and narrated the dream. As Abdullah spoke the words, the Prophet's peace be upon eyes softened with recognition. "This is a true vision, inshallah," he said. "Go teach it to Bilal, for he has a more beautiful and far-reaching voice." The command settled upon Bilal, he who had been crushed under the blistering stone of the Meccan desert, whose only words under the heel of Umay, ibn Khalaf, were Ahad, Ahad the One, was now chosen to voice the call of the One to the world. But this honor was a mountain upon his soul. As he walked away from the gathering, the faces of the Sahaba flashed before him, not with jealousy, but with overwhelming love and encouragement. Umar ibn al-Khattab gripped his shoulder, his fierce eyes moist. "O Bilal, by Allah, you are most deserving of this." Fatima, the Prophet's daughter, smiled at him, a smile that spoke of her mother Khadija's legacy, who was the first to believe and whose wealth freed many slaves. He remembered Sumayya bint Yat, the first martyr, who died for this truth he was now to proclaim. He thought of the warriors like Hamza, the Lion of Allah, who defended this call with his sword, and the scholars like Maid ibn Jabal, who would carry its meaning to distant lands. That night, Bilal did not sleep. He stood at the edge of the masjid, looking at the Qibla. His mind journeyed back to the valley of Baqa, to the scars on his back that tingled not with pain, but with a profound awe. How could it be him, a black man, a former slave, with no lineage the Quraysh valued? Yet the messenger, peace be upon, had said, "Indeed, the best of you are the most pious." The criterion was not skin, nor wealth, but the weight of the heart on the scale. He recalled the lesser-known Sahaba, like Khabbab ibn al-Arat, who had lain on burning coals, and Abu Dihar al-Ghifari, whose sincerity was as stark as the desert sun. They had all sacrificed for this moment. The call was not his alone. It was the crystallized voice of every sacrifice, every tear, every drop of blood shed for the declaration of faith. As the darkest hour before dawn approached, a gentle hand rested on his shoulder. It was the Prophet, peace be upon. He did not speak. He simply stood with Bilal, sharing the silence, sharing the weight. sharing the immense trust. In that companionship, Bilal found his strength. The approval of the messenger was all he needed. True honor in Islam is not inherited. It is earned through piety and sacrifice. Bilal's selection teaches us that Allah elevates whom He wills based on the content of their character and the sincerity of their faith. The Adhan was a divine gift, entrusted to a human heart that had been tested and purified in the furnace of oppression, proving that the most powerful voice is one forged in humility. The moment arrived, the first faint thread of light, the fajr of a new era, began to weave itself into the fabric of the sky. Bilal ascended to the highest rooftop near the masjid. Some narrations say it was the roof of the house of a noble woman of the Ansar, Sulaim, a companion known for her unwavering faith and wisdom, who eagerly offered her home for this sacred purpose. Standing there, the entirety of Medina lay before him, quiet and waiting. The palm fronds were still. The world held its breath. Bilal closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he was no longer in Medina. He was back in the scorching emptiness of Mecca's desert. The weight of the massive stone was on his chest, crushing the air from his lungs. The face of Umayyah ibn Khalaf, twisted with hate, loomed over him. Renounce Muhammad, worship Al-Lat and Al-Uzza. The sun was a merciless eye in the sky. His parched throat could only form one word, a word that was his lifeline, his rebellion, his entire being. Ahad, the one, the want. The memory shifted. He saw Abu Bakr as Siddiq, his face etched with pain and determination, arguing with Umayyah, paying an exorbitant price, not just in gold, but in the relentless persecution he would later face. Himself, for the freedom of a black slave, he saw the Prophet, peace be upon, wiping his wounded back with a tender hand, his tears mixing with the sand and blood. Be patient, O Bilal, for you the gardens of paradise await. Those scars on his back, once a map of his suffering, now felt like strings of a celestial instrument, tuned by agony to sing only of Allah's glory. His cracked lips, which once whispered Ahad in defiance, were now to proclaim the takbir in victory. He took a deep breath, filling his soul with the legacy of every believer who had come before. He thought of Asma bint Abi Bakr, who risked her life to deliver food to the Prophet, peace be upon, and her father during the Hijrah, earning the title that Nitikain, she of the two belts. He thought of the young Mus'ab ibn Umair, the dandy of Mecca, turned austere missionary of Medina, who had planted the seeds of faith in this very city. He thought of the Ansar of Medina, who opened their hearts and homes with a brotherhood unparalleled in human history, with every cell of his being vibrating with this collective memory. Bilal opened his eyes. He raised his hands to his ears, and from the depths of a heart that knew the cost of faith, the voice erupted, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The sound did not just travel, it unfolded. It rolled over the clay homes of Medina, through the narrow pathways, into every courtyard and every sleeping chamber. It was not the shout of a king, but the resonant, melodious cry of a liberated soul. It carried the coolness of the water Abu Bakr had given him in the desert, the strength of Umar's embrace, the gentle faith of Uthman, and the courage of Ali. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. In their homes, the companions froze. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the fierce, wept openly like a child. Abu Bakr smiled, his tears tracing lines through his beard. The children of Medina stirred, hearing a sound that would define their lives. The Prophet, peace be upon, listened, a smile of divine pleasure upon his lips. The words were not just an announcement, they were a declaration of revolution. The sovereignty belonged only to Allah, and Muhammad was his messenger, a truth for which Bilal had been tortured. As he called, Hayya ala Salah, Hayya ala Falah, come to prayer, come to success, it was an invitation born from his own journey. He had come from the depths of degradation to the pinnacle of success through Salah, through this very connection. Finally, with a power that shook the heavens, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illa Allah, the call ended. For a moment, there was a sacred silence more profound than any sound. Then from the Quba quarter, another voice echoed the call. It was Ibn Maktum, the blind companion, fulfilling his duty. The message was clear. This call was for all the seen and the unseen, the powerful and the weak, the free and the freed. Our greatest trials often become the source of our greatest purpose. Bilal's wounds were transformed into a vessel for the most beautiful call. His Adhan teaches us that our past pains do not disqualify us. They can uniquely qualify us to serve Allah in ways we never imagined. True success is answering the call to stand before Allah, leaving behind all worldly hierarchies. The first Adhan did not just signal a prayer, it announced the birth of a civilization. As the words faded, their resonance began to work in the hearts of Medina. Doors opened. Men, women, and children emerged from their homes, flowing like streams towards the masjid of the Prophet, peace be upon. They came not as tribes of Aus and Khazraj, once bitter enemies, nor as Muhajirin and Ansar, but as a single body drawn by a single call. Bilal descended from the rooftop. His legs felt weak, not from fear, but from the enormity of what had just transpired. At the base, the Prophet, peace be upon, awaited him. He took Bilal's hands in his own. I heard the footsteps of your beloved in paradise ahead of you, he said, a reference to the beautiful sound of the Adhan. In that moment, every moment of suffering was redeemed. The companions surrounded him. They did not congratulate him with mere words. They embraced him, their faces wet with tears of joy. This was the tangible brotherhood of Islam. Here was Salman al-Farsi, the seeker of truth from Persia, Suhaib al-Rumi, the Roman, and Bilal al-Habashi, the Abyssinian, all united under the banner of La ilaha illa Allah. The Adhan was the great equalizer, the daily renewal of their covenant. The story of that first dawn spread like sunlight. It reached the women in their quarters. Aisha, the mother of the believers, known for her brilliant intellect, would later narrate the virtues of Bilal. Salama, a sage of resilience and wisdom, smiled, remembering the Hijrah. The young Fatima al-Zahra, the Prophet's daughter, felt a special bond with Bilal, for he was a constant reminder of her father's mercy and justice. In the following days, the Adhan structured the life of the city. It was a spiritual clock, but also a social one. It gathered the community 5 times a day, dissolving disputes, strengthening bonds, and reinforcing shared identity. When battles loomed like Badr and Uhud, the Adhan was the rallying cry, a reminder of what they were defending. Warriors like Khalid ibn al-Walid, who would later become the Sword of Allah, and the strategic commander Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, the trustworthy of this ummah, fought to protect the sound of this call. Bilal became the permanent Muezzin of the Prophet, peace be upon. His voice was the soundtrack of the prophetic era. Yet, with the honor came a profound, heart-wrenching responsibility. He called the people to the prayer led by the man he loved more than his own soul. Every Ashhadu Anna Muhammadan Rasulullah was a testament of love. Years passed. The Muslim community grew strong. Mecca was conquered, not with vengeance, but with a profound mercy that stunned its former oppressors. On the day of the conquest, the Prophet, peace be upon, asked Bilal to ascend the roof of the Kaaba, the very house of idols that the Quraysh had defended by torturing him, and give the Adhan. As Bilal stood atop the Kaaba, facing the very spot where he had been tortured. His voice rang out over a liberated Mecca. The Quraysh nobles, now subdued, looked up in awe. Among them was the son of Umayyah ibn Khalaf, his father slain at Badr. He heard the voice of his father's former slave, now proclaiming the oneness of God from the most sacred spot in Arabia. It was the ultimate victory of truth over power, of faith over lineage. The Adhan is the heartbeat of the Ummah. It transcends race, nationality, and social status, creating a unity based solely on faith. Bilal's voice from the Kaaba teaches us that true conquest is not of lands, but of hearts. It reminds us that the structures of oppression are always temporary before the eternal call of Tawheed. After the passing of the Prophet, peace be upon, a silence fell upon Bilal's soul that no Adhan could fill. The world felt empty. He stood before the first Khalifa, Abu Bakr, as Siddiq, his eyes hollow with grief. "Oh, Abu Bakr," he said, his voice choked. "I heard the Prophet, peace be upon, say, the most beloved of deeds to Allah is for a man to die in the land where he emigrated. I emigrated only for the sake of Allah and His messenger. Now that the messenger is gone, I have no purpose here. Allow me to go for jihad on the frontiers. Perhaps I will find my end there." Abu Bakr, his own heart shattered, understood. But he pleaded, "O Bilal, by Allah, I cannot bear to lose you too. Who will give the Adhan for us?" Bilal replied with gentle firmness, "I will not give the Adhan for anyone after the messenger of Allah, peace be upon." Abu Bakr, knowing the depth of his pain, reluctantly granted him permission. Bilal left for Syria, carrying his love for the Prophet, peace be upon, like a sealed treasure in his chest. He fought as a mujahid under the banners of Islam, but his voice for the Adhan was retired. In Medina, the community felt his absence deeply. The Adhan continued, but it was missing the timbre that had accompanied revelation. Even Umar ibn al-Khattab, the mighty, would weep upon hearing a voice that reminded him of Bilal's. Years later, during his caliphate, Umar visited Syria. The people gathered, hoping for a miracle. They begged Bilal to give the Adhan one last time for the sake of the companions who missed him. After much persuasion, the old man agreed. As the time for prayer came, Bilal stood. His hair was white, his body frail from years of jihad, but his spirit remained unbroken. He raised his hands. The companions who had come with Umar, veterans of every battle, scholars who had memorized the Quran, held their breath. "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." The moment the first words left his lips, a seismic wave of memory struck the entire congregation. It was the voice of their youth, of their struggles, of the Prophet's era. It was not just an Adhan, it was a time machine of the heart. Every syllable transported them back to the courtyard in Medina, to the presence of the beloved, peace be upon. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the man of iron will, collapsed into uncontrollable sobs, his great body shaking. Men who had faced armies without flinching wept like children. The streets of Damascus echoed with a grief and a love so potent it felt like the day of resurrection had come early. For in that voice they heard Muhammad, peace be upon, again. Bilal finished the call. The air was thick with sacred sorrow. He turned to the people, his own face streaked with tears. "You have made this old man remember," he said softly. "Do not ask me to do this again." Not long after, in the quiet of a Syrian night, the final caller was called. Bilal ibn Rabah passed away. His last words were said to be, "Tomorrow we meet the beloved ones, Muhammad and his companions." He was buried in Damascus, his grave a beacon for all who understand that greatness lies in sincerity. His legacy, however, never died. His son and students carried the tradition of the Adhan forward. More importantly, every Majd, hin who stands in a minaret, from Jakarta to Jakarta, from Nigeria to New York, is a successor to Bilal. Every Hayya ala Salah is an echo of his liberated cry. He taught the Ummah that leadership is service, that honor is in piety, and that the most powerful force in history is a sincere voice calling to God. Bilal's story did not end with his death. It was perfected by it. He taught us that the greatest companionship is to love the Prophet, peace be upon more than this world. His life whispers to us across centuries, your pain has a purpose, your voice matters, your sincerity can change the course of time. He was the slave freed by faith, who became the master caller of a global civilization. When you hear the Adhan, remember Bilal. Remember the cost of that call, and let it pull you from the slavery of this world to the freeing prayer before your Lord. For in that prostration, we are all equal, we are all Bilal. Did this story move you? The legacy of the Sahaba is our blueprint for life. Support this mission, like, share, and subscribe to Sahaba Companions Stories. Turn inspiration into action. Let the next Adhan you hear be a call to renew your faith, purify your heart, and follow in their footsteps.